25th of June, 2011, Saturday night, Rabina, Titans, Sharks. 54th minute, Paul Gallen has troubled the scorers again with his second try in just 5 minutes, blowing this match wide open from 12-8 to 24-8 in the blink of an eye. Both were typical Gallen, his second barging through multiple defenders, including former teammate and Blues brother, Greg Bird, to add to his already Herculean effort with and without the ball. Just weeks after his record-breaking man-the-match 80-minute performance at prop in Origin 2, is Cronulla's maligned leader about to single-handedly turn this lackluster season around. Welcome to another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast, where we let our talking do the football. With me tonight, our leader, David Boldo, has decided to join me for my own little side hustle that is the Classic Cronulla Chronicles. David, where were you this lovely June evening in 2011?
I was there.
Wow.
I was actually at this one. I've got to a few matches in 2011. However, I had to be reminded by you, actually, that I was at this one. I distinctly remember a particularly fun night on the Gold Coast was had by the travelling Shark supporters at the time. I do remember the gallen tries and us being pretty pumped up about that. And we're a little bit optimistic about the rest of the season at this point. Could we make a run at it? Could we do something? Could it not be as disastrous? And I think you're going to remind us how that went.
Well, 2011 stands out for most of the wrong reasons, but it had some good parts we'll talk about later. But you are correct. I did have to remind you, I unfortunately couldn't make it. I tried to. I was working in Canberra at the time, but you did leave me a nice little voicemail at some ungodly hours. I had work, I think, at 4 or 5 a.m. the next morning, but I did enjoy watching it in the NRL footage. You can see online. You can see yourself and others, some great Sharks fans in there having a great old time at one of the ends. At the end that Paul Gallen scored his quickfire double at.
Were we at the end? Were we at the end, or were we at the?
You're at the end. It was right in base. There's a good shot, and it's one of the shots that we have.
Actually, we were at the end. I was thinking of the one we were on the side, but no, we were at the end for this one, of course.
I think you were there the year. It was at 2008. You went to every game in 2008.
Yeah, I went to every game in 2008.
This stadium was new. We were on the side, but I remember we were down quite low, and we didn't.
It's a bit weird. It was weird how there's only 7 or 8 rows that are kind of in that first
tier. Yeah,
it feels a bit weird.
Where they weren't full bays like those massive bays you see at the big stadiums these days, like Combank and Allianz and the like. But anyway, 2011 was a year, let's say that. This was a good part of the season, and we'll talk about how things went before and after shortly. So let's have a look at the before. So as you can see, an absolute blockbuster here. Gold Coast Titans 15th, Cronulla Sharks 13th heading into this one. Right in the middle of Origin period, so there's a few buys in there. Looking at the Titans' form first up, one win. They had a 28 points to 14 win over the Dragons a couple of weeks before this one. The Dragons were Origin affected. The match immediately prior to this match, they lost 8. They lost 31-8 to the Bunnies. They also lost 23-10 to the Panthers, 28-6 to the Bulldogs, and had a bye. Also, Sharks. Paul Gallen, hot on the heels of that Origin 2 performance, put in a starring display in what was Chad Townsend's second match in first grade in a 26-10 upset win at Homebush. We had a bye. We lost 34-16 in the Cancer John Manor fundraising match against the Broncos on a Friday night. We lost unluckily 14-8 to the Storm. We stuck it to them there down in Melbourne. And there was another Monday night shellacking where we had a few injuries and the like, 40 points to 6. Just prior to that form, we had beaten the Roosters on a Sunday afternoon in Stuart Mills's debut match. And then he got injured shortly after that. So a bit of an up and down period in 2011, which is the whole season, that whole era, really. Do you remember any of these matches?
I remember Parramatta spanking us 40-6 and that being painful. And then the Sharks being quite spirited the week later in the 14-8 loss. We copped 2 Broncos losses that season, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, there was that one at home, and there was one later that year where you and I were there up in Brisbane. And I think it was 46-16, that one, or 48-16 on a Friday night. And yeah, the
Bulldogs were pretty good at this time, though. So they made grand finals in 2012 and 14, didn't they? Yes.
They were building. They weren't quite
They
there.
weren't as good, though.
Yes. Ben Barber had started playing for them. They do beat us again later this season. So we got them during Origin period, but we had our own Origin concerns. But we're a pretty tidy win there, 26-10. But you're right, the Dogs started building and would make a prelim. Actually, I think they did 2011. They made the 2011 they made the prelim. 2012 they made the grand final, obviously. So you're right, they are starting to get
2011
better.
grand final was what, Manly versus the New Zealand Warriors.
Warriors, correct. Sean Johnson breakout debut season, and Manly winning that one. But yeah, obviously the Titans we'll go to the teams. Had an okay team on paper. Looking at the Titans team, you've got number 20 Jordan Rankin in at fullback with the wingers Steve Michaels and David Mead. David Mead later in the season would score an absolute cracker against us, where he caught a grubber
We all know,
behind him. You've seen it 1,000 times, unfortunately. The centers, Clinton Torpy and
was
Essie Tonga.
That the grubber or the one where it bounced and he...
It bounced. It was kind of a bit of an odd it bounced and he caught it.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, right in front of where we
sit. They've changed their team, though. They've moved Vilman from fullback to 5'8".
Yeah, so I just mentioned the centers of Torpy and Tonga, but the halves, Will Zillman, number 1, has gone into 5'8", with Scott Prince, the captain, at halfback. The front row, number 12, Mark Minicello's moved to prop. Matt Strama at hooker, number 15, Michael Henderson, and the back row of Anthony LaFranchi in jersey 10, moving to the back row. Greg Bird, a name we all know and semi-love, in 11, and Ashley Harrison off the bench in jersey 17 at lock. The bench of Matthew Wright, Ben Ridge, Brenton Loris, and Luke O'Dwyer, the coach John Cartwright. While for the Sharks, some moving and shaking as well. Number 19, Nathan Gardner, moving into the side. Got the wingers of Matthew Wright and Nathan Stapleton. The centres of Ben Pomeroy, Colin Best. The halves, Wade Graham, Chad Townsend, in just his third first-grade match. The front row of number 18, John Manor, number 9, John Morris, number 10, Luke Douglas, back row of Jeremy Smith, Jason Bakuya, Captain Paul Gallen, bench of Anthony Tupou, Sam Takatizi, Stuart Flanagan, no relation to Shane Flanagan, or Kyle for that matter, and Talima Tautai, the coach, Shane Flanagan. And if I just draw your attention to that second picture on the left, the lower one, you will see David Bolderman looking to his right, behind the referee there in the crowd immediately after Paul Gallen scored his second try. You said it, not me, but yes, you're looking like you're enjoying yourself there.
Certainly am. Let's just chat on these. Well, firstly, can we just talk about one of your all-time Sharks favourites in jersey 17, Talima Tautai.
We signed him from the Eels as a bit of a. I think he was dynamic. He was a winger, huge winger. He played semi, played second row. He could find his way around dropping the ball. That's for sure. A few okay games for us. He played a couple of seasons in that 2010-2011 era. I'll look him up before seeing where he moved off to. Great name, but yes, very maligned player.
One of the great rugby league names.
Talima Tautai.
Look, you look at this Shark squad so this was very early Sam Takatizi days too. So when he makes a big break later on, and he just looks so young, but he was an absolute beast when he turned up for the Sharkies.
He's only two games into his Sharks career after he'd signed him mid-season from the Titans after he'd had a bit of a storied. I suppose he'd been through a few different clubs by that stage, and was also similar to Tautai, was an outside back. So Takatizi started as a centre. Imagine him running at you at centre. He is just enormous.
So Nathan Gardner named at 19.
Yeah, so I'm just looking to see who was out. So for us, our loss was just looking at it. It doesn't actually say on this. Speculating around that time, it might have been Isaac Gordon. We also had Stuart Mills around that time, and Nathan Gardner
had gone by then.
Simmons had gone. Simmons had gone. He left at the end of 2009, I believe.
Yeah.
And off to Penrith to score plenty more tries. We also had Albert Kelly was in the squad that year. He started the season at 5'8", and was pretty promising for us before he copped a pretty bad injury, I think against Newcastle in around that time. So we had a few changes in the halves, a few changes in the spine. So Gardner, a unlikely number 19. But on Rugby League Project, it just says that Cade Snowden was out, John Manor was in, and it doesn't mention who was number 1. So while obviously the Gold Coast had an oodles of changes in there, including Preston Campbell was normally 5'8". He was out, so Campbell was still playing at this stage. I think it might have been his last or second last season. Joe Tamane, Luke Bailey, Ryan James, Bodine Thompson, all players that were out. So they had a pretty handy team themselves. If you look at those players, they're probably not.
Must have been. Was it Albert Kelly?
Might have been Albert Kelly. Must have been. I'm thinking either Albert Kelly or actually a couple of weeks before against Melbourne, Isaac Gordon had played fullback for us, scored a try and went pretty well. So looking, if I go back to the previous game against South Sydney, no, that was them.
Well, that would make sense. So Isaac Gordon played 5 matches that season.
Yeah.
And Stewie Mills.
Yeah. And Gardner was starting fullback the previous week, so I'm not sure what changed with the jersey numbers there. But Isaac Gordon did play a number of games at fullback for us. If
anyone knows the answer to that, get it in the comments and set us straight for what happened there and why Gardner was not.
Why Gardner was 19, but
why Gardner was 19.
A bit of an odd one.
Looking back at this match, it's lovely to see Johnny Manor in any of the matches. Yeah. And looking back at any of those. Yeah. And then I distinctly remember this season being memorable for the Cade Snowden backflip and then exit, and then Luke Douglas also leaving for the Titans. And looking at that Titans team, they really were just hanging on to their Halcon days of, when they came into the comp with Rogers and Preston and those semi-final consistent making teams of the Titans.
They'd made the prelim the preceding year and then lost the Roosters. So they were coming off a prelim final, were looking good. And then Matt Rogers talks about in his book, they just copped too many injuries this year and things started to fall by the wayside. But you're right, they had some good players in there. The players they're missing, I suppose, quite a few. And you got, kind of Preston Campbell, Luke Bailey, Ryan James, Bodine Thompson. Ryan James and Bodine Thompson probably at the start of their career, sorry. But start to fall.
Ryan James is a beast, wasn't he?
Yeah, he hit probably career best form around 2015, 2016-ish. Yeah. For us looking at that side.
Well, maybe, and Scott Prince probably was starting to go off by then. He was a 2005 premiership winner, wasn't he?
Yeah, so what are we talking? It's only 6 years on from 05. It seems like an eternity ago, and it seems like even watching the game, a big difference between 05 and 2011. And it's funny how time changes like that. And looking at our side, some starting indications, not that we had any idea at the time of who would be in and around in 2016, but you've got Chad would leave the Warriors and come back, Wade Graham in at 5'8", and then Jason Bakuya, Paul Gallen, Sam Tagatese. Ricky Latelli would play 2 games that year and make his debut later in the season. So
also,
should be well forward.
Let's just how, back to your point on how different the times and the eras are. It's also a lighter Sharks blue, or maybe it just appears lighter because of the.
No, it's very much a lighter Sharks blue. That was they were the jerseys they had at the time, the Hisense light blue jerseys. I never know if we would have had an alternate strip, but it wasn't. It was more of like a white. So it was either a light blue or a predominantly light blue or predominantly white strip. They weren't the best jerseys here, and we did have a black strip around that time as well, which was probably the first of our predominantly black jerseys that we've had. Some of them have looked good. Rolling forward to the actual match itself, not a great start for the Sharks. David Mead scoring an early try off a great run from Clinton Torpey, where he somehow stayed in and had, I think, 3 Sharks players on him with the barest part of his foot somehow staying in the field of play before he was pushed over the right touch line to pass it into David Mead, who just dotted down.
Good player, Clinton Torpey.
He was a very good player.
He was around for a while.
He played quite a few games. I was looking at Talima Tautai just for a second on his career. He played the 2 seasons for us in 2011 and 2010. Went back to Parramatta before proceeding on to England. So not the...
and he played 2 matches for us.
No, he played more than that. He played 2 seasons, but he played a total of Looking at Talima Tautai, he played a total of 33 matches for 4 tries and a win record of 36.36%. All important stats there. Moving on to our first points, and Nathan Gardner hits back. We'll show you the video now. I'll add that to the stage here. And it was the pick of them. So we had Graham drifting left, put it back inside to Colin Best, who ran inside, and then found Nathan Gardner bursting through a huge gap, and breezing past the.
They don't really score tries like that anymore, do they?
What do you mean, the Sharks in general, or
just in rugby league in general? Just a basic play up the guts.
Look at the size of that gap, though. We don't have the preceding play, but if I show that again, that's an enormous hole. You could drive. Yeah.
See, they don't
take it like.
Yeah, they're better at the NRL now. Is better at closing up those gaps.
Mark Minicello got exposed there significantly, so he's the one lazy on the inside that just wasn't in the line, and that you're right. Teams punish them. These days.
Yeah, teams are better at defending that as well.
Yeah. So
just
which is funny.
Given the Nathan Gardner, though.
Yeah, he's electric.
He was just so good, wasn't he?
He was affected
funny
by
how he
injury.
Just fell off, though, isn't it?
Well, 2010 was his breakout year with the big try, the long try against the Roosters, and some good performances there. 2011, he was affected by an injury. He got injured against the Cowboys at home, and then came back against Souths. I think it was at that one as well. We lost at Homebush. I was hurrying up from Canberra to try and make it. You were there. We were up 12-0 early. I had to park way down near the hockey centre because there was some Justin Bieber concert on, run up, get into the ground about 20 minutes in, and the Sharks didn't score another point. And I'll find the final score for that one shortly. But I think Gardner got injured again in that one, and he had a bit of.
He went through that funny hair phase, and then once Todd Carney turned up, he couldn't really make the team with Michael Gordon and a few of those other guys floating around.
No, Gardner, he would play for us twice in 2014, once in 2013, and only 6 times in 2012 after playing 18 matches. I think they rushed him back. It was an ankle injury in 2011. So anyway, that was some good quality work from Gardner there, but he was very small, prone to the odd, interesting choice as well. Later this season would be the one where he tried to kick the ball in his own in goal against the Roosters, and it didn't go so well.
We also covered the one where he took the quick tap with 5 seconds to go in the first half.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, that had a great result. That was early this season against the reigning premiers in the Dragons. I feel terrible saying those words, but that game I was talking about against Souths, Sharks led 12-0 early and ultimately lost 31 points to 12. So I don't remember that one.
Personified.
Absolutely. Third try tonight went to the Titans. David's all-time record of third try scorers. We'll have to have a look at that one to see how the statistics hold up, or that theory holds up.
I think this is the 4th Chronicles I've done, and this is the first time that the third try scorer hasn't been the Sharks. So that would speak to the theory that it works 75% of the time, 100%.
Might only line up with yourself, because last week it was third try scorer to third try to Souths, and some others that were third try to other teams as well. But Ellie Tonga scored the 29th minute. Actually, on that, I'm pretty sure the Bulldogs scored the third try in their 52 points to 10 loss to us, which was the first.
No, they didn't.
I thought they did. It was 12-4, and then we blew it. Anyway, we'll have a look at that later. But Ellie Tonga scored 29th minute.
Might have been 12-4 actually in that one. You're right.
Yeah, 8-6. So I think it was a try out wide, and hasn't missed the goal. But anyway, so Titans lead 8-6 at this stage. Pretty tight first half. And then approaching halftime, Chad Townsend in his 3rd match of first grade with a nice little bomb that's not a bomb. So maybe a sign of things to come and frustration to come for many Sharks and other team fans. But he got a result on this occasion through a very good player under the high ball, and that is Nathan Stapleton, as I just bring this video up for our viewers on YouTube. For those on Spotify, I'll attempt to commentate. It's loading. So here we are. Morris is about 10 metres out, just on the right, little dink over, and great leap and catch by Stapleton there. That's why Franco loves him so much.
Staple!
And then Chad converting from wide out on the right with a very straight not quite toe poke, but a very straight run in and strike of the ball to make it 12-8 right on half time.
This one also had the lead up where wasn't necessarily set up from a Titans error. It was a Tagatese just barnstorming run. That
Tagatese had just come on from the bench and
things to come, Matthew.
Burst through. I do love one of my favourite Tagatese moments, I think, was early 2013. It was the same game where Michael Gordon was on a kicking streak, and many people around the ground actually went, oh, he's getting close to Haslam's record. He's on, I think, 26 or 27. And Michael Gordon shanked it from next to the post. I think immediately after Tagatese had made a break, and the Warriors fullback, can't remember who it was, it might have been Sam Tompkins, thought that Tagger was going to dummy, and turns out Tagger didn't even dummy. He just kind of like glared at him, kind of like motioned like he was going to pass it. And then just kept on running.
Out of the way.
So it was dumming without dumming. It was
I do remember
classic
that one.
Tagger. So 12-8 at the break, tight first half. Titans obviously having the 2019 Sharks syndrome of not being able to convert any goals, costing them as we rolled into the second half.
He was an excellent leaping player. Nathan Stapleton, wasn't he?
He was, and we'll see it again shortly afterwards. Obviously, we wish all the best to Stapo and his family, but showed his worth under the high ball in this one again later in the match with another similar try. But what we're talking about pre-show of Gallen with the play that he was providing, we'll show you in a video here, which demonstrates his ability in two very quick moments, or to a short, quick succession, 2 tries from about 10 meters out, both of them. Both in the same video here. So the first one in the 48th minute, Colin Best was being taken. He's just passed an offload onto a rampaging Gallen who's deceptively quick, I think. He's looking
He is faster here, isn't he?
Yeah, and funnily enough, he started, I'll chat to you about his start of his career here, but he's his second try. Just one off the ruck, but he's gone straight through 3 defenders there, 2 in direct contact with the fullback. Yeah, Sharma and Bird, and he's kept the left arm out and big reach and put it over. So 2 quick tries to blow the game wide open. We'll talk about Gallen shortly in the talking points, but Gallen did start his career as a junior as a centre, and it was, I think I mentioned on the show, it's talked about in his book, but I've forgotten her name now, the Elise Perry, the cricketer / soccer player, her dad was the coach at Parramatta Marist and moved into the second row. But there's the famous footage of Billy Slater's debut match in 2003, where we were up 22-0 and lost. And Paul Gallen actually runs on the diagonal and runs Billy Slater down. So he was very quick early on. I remember him scoring some good long-range tries, probably around the 05-06 era, especially one against Parramatta in a game we lost where he ran about 50 metres, but outpaced quite a few of the Parramatta back line. So, and that showed his at that stage of his career, the acceleration he had going straight through. Immediately was Scott Prince for the first try and another defender, but the second one as well. Just in and around that area, he was so dangerous and provided even more in 2012, I thought. But sign of probably what was peak Gallen. Any comments there on
Gallen? This was peak Gallen. There was a straight up, was right after the 80-minute Origin match at Prop. And it was also through the time when the Sharks were also giving the ball to Gallen a lot at first receiver, and he was just running and trying to score. And so it was against these weaker oppositions where that move for Gallen was effective, but against the more top teams, it just didn't work as much. And so he was a little unpopular with some of the Sharks faithful at the time, and Sharks forums groups were like, Gallen, pass the ball, get out of first receiver.
It would start to morph into the Paul Gallen fourth tackle settler, which would hold us back. He did earlier in his career in 05 and 06 play a bit of 5'8" as required as well. And I remember a particular game at Brookvale in 04, it was actually, where he played 5'8" and scored 2 tries. So rolling forward to Steve Michael scored to bring the Gold Coast back with he scored in the corner, bring back within 12. We got a penalty goal. Chad took the 2 and we went 14 up, 26 points to 12. And then we had 2 late kind of scrappy tries to seal it. So This probably indicates where we're at as a club, I suppose, at the time, where I was more looking at the result and going, how good's that? We just put 36 points up on the Gold Coast. We never win up there. That's great. But we fell back to earth a few weeks later. But we'll bring up the first try here. And this one was a little stabbing kick in from dummy half. And Gardner and Tupou both dived on the ball at the same time. The commentator's joking as to the video referee having to see who actually scored it. They gave it to Gardner. I thought unfortunate for Tupou, because goodness gracious, if he hadn't scored any tries that year, you'd be pretty filthy for the nudie run. But he did get one try that year. Well, Gardner got quite a few. And the second try here was another little dink over the top by Townsend, and Stapo with a juggle and scored in the right corner to make it 36 points to 12. Again, over the top of Steve Michaels there for the try. So any thoughts on those final two tries there?
They're just masking that actually the Sharks were kind of rubbish this season.
Yes, unfortunately.
To your point. And we also thought that the Gold Coast Titans were a better team than they actually were after the prelim loss for them the previous year. Watching back this match, the other thing I noticed was Pomeroy's just tendency to somehow get himself in a position where he's going to like suplex someone or like belly to belly, like Brock Lesnar style suplexes. Pomeroy was just so entertaining. It wasn't exactly a memorable match for Pomeroy for tries and whatnot, but Pom's
without the ball.
Without the ball, entertaining to watch.
Without the ball, Pomeroy was and always will be very entertaining. This is pre-shoulder charges being outlawed as well, so you never knew what you're going to get out of him, whether he's going to fly out the line and completely miss the tackle or whether he was actually going to kill the guy. And yes, unfortunately,
Pomeroy will be 2013, wasn't it?
2013 was his last year. He then moved on to England, and the poor guy had send-offs in consecutive matches. One of them was a suplex. You look him on YouTube. One of them was an out-and-out suplex drop to guy on his head, and then the next one, I think he goes out of the line to try and put a shoulder charge on and just rips a guy's head off. I just really love his reaction both times too.
Anyone else?
Mark Riddell, actually, funnily enough, P. Riddell back in, goodness gracious, what was that, 2003, 2004?
Did that happen to him?
Yeah, so he got for the Dragons. So he got on the Easter clash against, I think it was the Bulldogs at Homebush. He got done and was out for a fair while with I don't know why, but he just literally lifted the elbow and he got.
So he was suspended and came back and then got sent off in the next one. Pomeroy got sent off in 2 consecutive matches without being suspended in the first one, which is even funny.
It's crazy. I think he definitely copped a suspension for his second one, but I don't know. There must have been like, this guy's got a clean record. It's not his go. It's not his go. Never mind the fact he's been suplexing people in Australia for the last 10 years. But looking at
there it is, Gal's form.
Talking points. So Gal's form was obviously fantastic. This was around the era where he had the standout match in game 2, playing 80 minutes of prop, man the match. Winning a lot of Sharks fans money, gamble responsibly, everyone. But I was one of those people that bet on him for man of the match, and he was a starring player in that one. And he did, obviously 2012, I think, was even better. Early 2012, I remember a game against the Cowboys in Townsville where he, I would say, single-handedly won that for the club, for the Sharks. He was just at that perfect mix of experience and fitness and the like. 2011, he was under an injury cloud a fair bit, and there was talk post the Bulldogs win the week before that he said if the Sharks weren't a mathematical chance of making the finals, I would have rested up and focused on Origin. And I remember that. I was trying to find the articles on it. There was only a couple of little comments here or there, not the full thing, but I remember the forums and everyone, maybe even me, myself, and they're exploding, going, "What is this state versus club?" But the old,
like, if we were running the podcast then, Chris Kelly would have just been absolutely losing his SHIT.
Imagine that. So let's say Nico equivalent comes out and goes, "You know what? I'm going to sit out for the next 8 weeks because I want to focus on Origin, and the Sharks aren't going to make the finals." So stuff was kind of the vibe. He would wait a few more years before lifting the trophy or the shield for New South Wales, 2014. So New South Wales would get smashed in the.
He is the most losing captain of the New South Wales Origin ever, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And I think it's not his fault, right? He's up against a red hot
Pretty sure he holds
Queensland
the record
era.
for most NRL losses as well.
Wow, that would be cool. He probably would. I'd have to have a look at that. But yeah, given he's got a 50% win rate record and
And
350
played
odd
a
games.
heck of a lot of games.
Yeah, so he'd be up there.
What is he? Is he
Surely.
350 games, isn't he?
Yeah, it was 348, I think was his
So
figure.
the players who were 350 is Cliff Lyons.
Yeah, he's not going to have a bad win record. Yeah,
Billy Slater,
neither
Cooper Cronk, Cameron Smith, Darren Lockyer.
They've all got 60, 70% win
They've
records.
got high winning percent records, those guys.
It's funny, wouldn't you
Terry
think
Lamb.
of... And I suppose even the worst teams like the Western Suburbs, late 90s, they weren't bad for long. They were terrible in their last few years.
There's a big 350 to 300, which means even at 50%, he's given them a 25 start.
Yeah.
It's a lot to make up.
That's it. And then I was just thinking of surely there's a player that's played for a whole stack of bad teams, or a bad team that's gone for a long period. But that's a good point, John Morris. But John Morris had a lot of success with Newcastle and even Parramatta early on. So I will have a look at where John Morris is.
We'll talk about that in a future Chronicles and confirm that.
We will look at that. But so Gallen was pretty close to peak form there, I thought. Obviously, he would continue on.
So strong for Gallen.
Yeah, and just you could see there that every time he carried the ball, just the amount of defenders he stuck in, those 2 tries he scored, never gave up on any play. And I think it was a couple of years later, probably around 2013-ish. I remember there was a lot of Paul Gallen, Chuck Norris style memes getting around from opposition fans.
Yep.
So I don't know if that was sullied a bit by the Asada scandal. Probably was, given that some of the doubts around his exploits were probably unfairly. Well, you can see why people would ask the question, but I think it was unfair given that
Gallen's a target.
Of course,
anything to bring Gallen down, and people go at him. He's an absolute Sharks legend, Paul Gallen.
Dislikable fellow, but he's our dislikable fellow, and he was an absolute gun during this era. So thank you, Paul, for that, and thank you for giving us, I suppose, some unrealistic hope, some false hope on that season, which will.
It's all your fault, Paul Gallen. Don't play so well.
Exactly. Chad. So the Chad, this was his 3rd game in first grade. A couple of tries this year, 6 from 7 with the boot. He was highly rated in the under-20s competition, and I'm not going to say he was the Messiah. He wasn't quite spoken about in the same way that, let's say, Russell Aitken was. I remember he was very highly regarded and then would go on to not do much at all and then knock us out in the 08 prelim. But Chad was doing a job there. Him and Wade and the halves were serviceable.
Wade was recruited as a halfback, though, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Halfback. Played halves all through his junior years. Andrew Voss quoted saying he was the best, also the biggest halfback he'd seen in schoolboy footy and had the skills to boot, but then would move to the second row. But Chad started his career well. I remember rating him at the time, and then there was a bit of talk as soon as we signed Todd Carney that Chad was going to go to the Dragons. I think that fell down, but eventually he would leave us at the end of 2013 to the Warriors. So any memories on early Chad?
I remember not being that disappointed that he left.
Yeah. I think by that stage,
not excited that he came back either.
I was somewhat excited that he came. I have to check the order of signatures, but I think he was signed after Maloney. So when Maloney was signed in 2015 for 2016, I was like, wow, we are on here. And then I thought, how does that work? Because Robson's leaving. Do you have Maloney and Bird in the halves? Thinking that both of them were a bit like headless chooks.
Yeah, Chad was after Maloney. Thinking about it, he was.
Yeah, where Chad was signed. And then I was like, actually, Chad would be ideal next to Maloney. And then you put Bird in the centres. There was the talk of Bird to fullback and the craziness that all that associated there, that apparently Flanagan wasn't sold or convinced on Barber until right up to the start of the season. There was a 3-way shootout between Valentine, Jack Bird
wasn't
Ben
very
Bummer.
good in the preseason at fullback.
No. Yeah, well, he's not the thing is, he's not a fullback, right? I'd say he's a back row centre. But yeah, so Chad was showing some stuff here, but he was always rather, even early on, rather predictable, rather pedestrian, just a kind of like a Kyle Flanagan style halfback. I don't know what all the
He's a
vibe
better
and hype.
version of Kyle Flanagan, wasn't he?
Yeah, Kyle Flanagan had a lot of hype around him, and I never got that because I'd watched him a fair bit with Franco in the 20s, and I thought, yeah, he can kick a goal. Yeah, he's got a decent.
Flanagan was just in a good 20s team.
Yeah, but even still in a good 20s team, he didn't stand out. That's the thing that I had, where I suppose Chad did stand out a little bit. He was measured. He had a reasonable kicking game, and he was young. So I suppose in 2011, it's probably indicative that we were trying to latch on to anything. Whereas we started the season with Wade Graham and Albert Kelly at 5'8", Wade Graham at halfback, and they looked at Graham as the controlling halfback, and Albert Kelly as the running 5'8". Well, and Albert Kelly, I think there was an interesting halves pairing with some good wins early on, but Chad and Wade were not that. So anyway, good to see. I suppose the start of Chad's career. He was pretty young at the time, and obviously Sharks junior, so he would have been wrapped coming into first grade into a struggling team and getting some wins on the board.
Yeah, put Gal and Chad next to each other, the best buddies.
They are, yes. Recent media has attested, or not. On that, I suppose it's a talk for a wider discussion the other day. Do you like Gallen calling Chad out that they're not mates in public? I suppose kind of increasing the trust.
I don't know. It just makes Gallen more interesting.
Gallen more interesting, yeah. I don't know.
Trying to be a headline. I don't see any reason for trying to air your dirty laundry with people that you might be friendly with. It doesn't. I'm just not sure that there's any winners out of him doing that.
No. That's what I was thinking. There's no winners, and I think
it makes Gallen look like a dickhead, and it makes Chad look like a dickhead.
Exactly, exactly that. And then Buzz Rothford was coming in saying that Chad's got a list of journalists that he hates, and if I was a player, I probably would have Buzz Rothford top of that list as well. But I mean, obviously, journos are always going to be dirty on players that don't give them the time that they expect or the respect that they believe they deserve.
Well, journos are also looking for scoops, and they're looking for leaks.
Yeah.
And so some players won't give journalists leaks. And so,
yeah. But I just saw what was interesting.
We saw it last year with the Sharks. I won't mention what piece, but there was certainly a fluff piece by a journalist on some of the Sharks stuff.
Yeah.
Going, who are they paying back?
Yeah. Buzz had kind of doubled down on the anti-Chad business, but I thought Gal raising it in the first place. I'm like, oh, it's interesting, but
not
I thought. They're not. Yeah. Whereas Chad, I suppose, not the best halfback getting around. I'm definitely not his biggest fan, but what he's got out of his career, the money he's earned for him and his family, I think good on him. He went to the Cowboys to do a job up there. Now he's off the Roosters.
He's a premiership winning halfback for the Cronulla Sharks. He's
all the very best. Right? All the very best. On to Gallen versus Bird. It was built up as this is the former teammate Blues Brothers matchup.
Bird
and
wasn't close to Gallen by this point. Once Bird got done in 2008, he never recovered, and he never got that height of the training back. And whilst he was a very good player, he never really amounted to much.
Yes, this is the second time they'd faced off in a club game after the first time Bird had played against us in late 2010, which we covered only just a matter of weeks ago. I covered that game.
Bird played in their prelim, did he?
2010, he would have, yes. So he was back. I think he was back from France mid-ish season in 2010. He played against us at Shark Park in what was also Matt Rogers' final match at Shark Park, Luke Cavell and Trent Barrett's farewell match. So he would then face up against, or we faced Paul Gallen actually in the Indigenous All-Stars versus the NRL All-Stars. And then also this is his second game. So there's a fair bit of chat in the media about it.
We do against Bird. Gal normally wins, doesn't he?
Yeah, we're looking at the winning record. So there was a total of 9 matches total, including 2 All-Stars matches. There was 1 draw. I'll talk about that one in a sec. 2 wins to Greg Bird, and the remainder, so 6 wins to Paul Gallen.
That's right, Gal.
Yeah, so Gal.
Come on, Gal.
Gal dominated that one. Well, Greg Bird's record against Sharks in total was 7 matches, 4 losses, 2 wins and a draw, and 1 try that he scored in there. Do you remember the draw? Do you know what year that was? It also happened to coincide with Greg Bird's final game against Cronulla in his final season for the Gold Coast before he departed back to Le Catalan
Well, there was the draw against the Titans in 2016 that ended the streak, isn't there? Is that the one?
That was it. That was it. And I thought Greg Bird was very good for the Titans in that one. And also when we played them at Shark Park earlier that season and we won 25-20, but we kind of got out of jail. The Gold Coast kept hanging around and led for periods of that match. Greg Bird was very good in that one as well. So
pretty handy in that premiership winning team, Greg Bird.
He would have walked.
If we have Greg Bird, who doesn't play or who don't we have in the premiership winning team?
Well, you can't get rid of Lewis. You can't get rid of Lewis or Graham in that back row. So you have Bird off the bench.
No, but what I'm saying is if we keep Bird.
If you keep Bird, who do you not get? I reckon you don't get Luke Lewis. At least. So you don't get
I think you don't get Luke Lewis.
Yeah. You don't get let's face it, the Clive Churchill that was the politically correct choice instead of Fafita. But
what are you talking about? Luke Lewis was clearly the best player that night.
If you have Bird,
what do you mean? It was anyone else? Well, you're right. It was Sasai Feki. Actually, Feki did have a good game. Actually, we did.
I was going to say it was Kurt Capel as 18th man, but the Bird instead of Lewis. That's another interesting hypothetical. Rolling forward to the 2011 side, so there's a pick of John Morrison, Nathan Gardner there. We've already touched on it in that obviously there was some youth and experience there, but not quite the direction or the class needed to really trouble anyone above, let's say, position 12 in the competition. There was still a lot of players in there with so Colin Best was at the end of his career. Nathan Gardner was early and promising, but full of brain farts. Talima Tautai was still in the side. Had a lot of injuries in there, non-stable halves pairing. John Morris at hooker, not really threatening. We thank John for his time, but he's no Michael Ennis, for example. No, I would even say no Dean Treaster. And decent, we had throughout that period, we had a very good forward pack. So that's what kept us in games. If the forward pack rocked up and dominated, it gave us a sniff, but you see the tries we scored.
Of today's back line, do we?
The first try we scored was great. The next ones were barge overs or bombs or ricochets. So you got 3 tries from kicks, 2 from bombs, 1 from a ricochet, 2 gallen barge overs, and the flashy try from Gardner. So not.
Well, you've called it out on the Chronicles series before of the benefit of hindsight, but it is so right. Is that when you look back at these teams, you don't realize that you had a good team at the time when you did have a good team. And conversely, when you've got a crap team, you really don't realize how crap the team was. Looking at this team, there was no chance these guys were making the playoffs. Absolutely none. And I remember being all buoyed by this Sharks victory up on the Gold Coast. They're not good. They're just no good. It's so right.
Great segue to the 2011 season. That's why I kind of brought up the next slide. And I'm glad that so serendipitous there you coming up with that point, because it was, I think, Kelly last week when we were talking about the Sharknado side, 2015, not realizing what you got. We didn't know at the time that what Bird and Lettelli
you just don't know what
you're
seeing on sometimes. These players can just come out of nowhere and become absolutely brilliant, which is actually what you need to win these premierships.
Yes.
I remember saying in the 2015-16 off season, what do the Sharks need to win the premiership? Ben Barber needs to become the best player in the world, and we need 2 young players to become absolute guns, and then all the experienced guys need to have career best form. If all of that can happen, we can win. And all of those things did happen.
They did happen. And in this occasion, looking at this squad, we'd won 2 matches in a row. Admittedly, they were both kind of upsets. Well, the Bulldogs game definitely was this one. And the Bulldogs game, you'd argue, was a convincing upset. This one was, I suppose, 2 struggling teams, and the Sharks getting a bit of rub of the green and putting a bigger score on. And I remember at the time being how chuffed, so stoked with the result, going, yes, we've just smashed the Gold Coast. We're looking back. Yeah, right. It was lucky rub of the green results and tries and the like.
Don't get excited beating the Gold Coast. Come on, so the Gold Coast. That's why I've got it in my little thing. I always like the Seagulls or the Giants or the Gold Coast Tweed Heads.
The Chargers. So we go back home the following week. Boyd get 18,000 at sunny Shark Park on a Sunday afternoon. And we beat the South Sydney Rabbitohs 26 points to 4. And we go, there's 3 in a row. come on, the following Saturday night at Shark Park, we get a decent crowd in, and we're playing against Fergo, who's back at the club for the first time after
that one doesn't
his
end
departure in 2010. No, we won that one too. We won 26-12.
Does he score?
Fergo did score a try. He does score. He does score.
He
But
scores
we had the
early,
game.
doesn't he?
Yeah, he scored. I think we had the match. We wrapped up the match fairly quickly after that. And then we played the Dragons on a Monday night. I remember going there with you, and we were buoyed with confidence, thinking, okay, here we go. And it finished Cronulla Sharks 8, St. George Illawarra Dragons 38. So we go, okay. That was a Cogra. Okay, we're playing against reigning premiers there, post-Origin, bit of a hangover. Right, let's reset. We're playing against the Knights. We win against the Knights. We got as high as 10th. If we beat the Knights in round 20, we would have been in the top 8 for the first time in several years. And we lost 18 points to 0. And then the rest of the season just did its thing. We lost by 40 to the Broncos up there. We lost the Gold Coast at home. We lost the Bulldogs at home.
Yeah, that match against the Broncos where we got pumped.
Yeah,
I remember arguing with a chairman at the time saying, no, we're rubbish. We're not going to do anything. And he was like, no, David.
Yeah. Well, Wade Graham did learn lots from Darren Lockyer that evening.
We'll tell that story. So there's Damien Irvine, Matthew Williams, and Bolderman having a drink at the what was the name
Normanby, the Normanby Hotel
Normanby.
in the beer garden.
And
all of us were very sober. I'm not sure we talked about.
Yeah, goodness. And there was a guy, I think, one of the guys, the Sharks fans, that was drinking on that night out. I think he's still got a hangover. He drunk so much. And lovely Damien, he was just so upbeat leading the Sharks, wasn't he? And so he's trying to give us a silver lining that Wade Graham would learn a lot from playing opposite Darren Lockyer. And Matthew and I have gone on to joke about that comment for pretty much ever since that night. Said, we won that 2016 premiership all because Wade Graham played opposite Darren Lockyer that one time, Damo.
Well, he would have learnt from the players he played opposite and with. But yes, that night didn't leave us with much hope, because I think we went from foolishly winning 4 in a row and foolishly thinking we were a chance, and then sliding back down the ladder back to where we belonged very quickly after that. And that game really hammered that home. We would then also lose to the Roosters. We're at that one where Nathan Gardner we had a handy lead. The Roosters came back. We were still leading, I think, and then Gardner tried to kick the ball in his in goal, and the Roosters just picked it up and waltzed on in. We then lost to the Cowboys, and then we finished the season with Paul Gallen's 200th match and Ricky Latelli playing his second match in first grade, and we lost 30 points to 22 to the Tigers, and that was the end of the 2011 season. So looking at that
season, Colin Best captained the Sharks.
Colin Best would then captain us again, I think, the following season as well. So he played one more year for us. The scorecard that night, the fallout, we won 36-12 with doubles to Gallen, Gardner, and Stapleton. Chad with 6 from 7. The Gold Coast, no goals to Scott Prince and tries to David Mead, Steve Michaels, and Ellie Tonga. And as we were chatting there, the Sharks finished the season with just 7 wins, 17 losses, 13th position.
You weren't far off getting the spoon.
Whilst the Gold Coast, only 1 win behind us, 6 wins, 18 losses, finished 16th. So a bit of a logjam at the bottom of the table there, as I'll bring up the whole 2011 season and see who else was in our illustrious company. Canberra were down there. So Canberra and the Gold Coast both finishing the season on 16 competition points with those 2 buys and the 6 wins, as did Parramatta. So a 3-way logjam at the bottom. And the for and against stakes. So Parramatta were minus 153, Canberra minus 200, and the Gold Coast minus 266, while the Sharks sitting in 13th with 1 extra win, and that lofty get us out of the relegation zone if we're talking Premier League, minus 129 on the for and against. So
all 2011 was back then. Those 4 teams, they were all rubbish.
Yeah, obviously the season was won by Manly. Warriors with a standout surprise packets making the grand final. 2011,
we as a club are miles away from these times, though.
We are so far, which is great. Just don't let us go back there, please.
Oh, please don't.
Yeah, if those, I suppose watching this game, maybe in several months or years, or this video anyway, we are filming it ahead of us playing the Gold Coast Titans on Friday night in late 2024, after we've just beaten or snuck past a reserve grade outfit that was the South Sydney Rabbitohs 20.6. A lot of people aren't happy with that performance, myself included, but still it was a win. And I think we have a lot more potential with the side we currently have than the side that we foolishly believed in this occasion. So, yeah.
That's true.
Yes. Trindle is showing a lot more. He'll be injured this weekend, unfortunately, but a lot more in the halves. And we have a backline that can do things, and a forward pack, hopefully, that will click soon and start firing. Where this one, gosh, there was a few guys there that were better suited to reserve grade or England or other clubs that we believed would give us a premiership. So that was the fallout. That was 2011. Put in the like and also obviously like and subscribe. Put in the comments if you were there or if you have any fond memories of Talima Tautai and all that was 2011. David,
and if you know who was named at fullback, because
yes, that is the question. We couldn't seem to find that one this evening. Put me on the spot there.
Albert Kelly.
Could have been. I'll have a look at Albert Kelly. I don't think he played many matches for us that year. I think he was.
I played like 5 of them.
Yeah, so
no, I reckon it was Isaac Gordon. I reckon you're right. I reckon it's Gordon.
Yeah, Isaac Gordon.
Because Gordon got dumped. But
he would then play a starring, or not so starring, role in the 2012 semi-final against Canberra the following year. But, that was all there was for this episode of Chronicles. As always, thank you for your attendance. Like and subscribe. And next week we're playing against the... Who are we playing?
Actually got the Dragons.
Dragons away. There's some good wins down there. There was a hat-trick to Bronson Sherry in 2019. There was a Andrew Fafita long-range sprint for a grounding of a loose ball in 2013 to win right on the bell. So if you have any preferences, let us know. But I'm leaning towards 2013.
What do you reckon, sporting music god?
I think he's going to believe in 2013 as well. But anyway, in the meantime, up, and we'll catch you soon. Cheers, guys.
See you guys.